So you gotta play games to talk about games, and I haven't been able to do that because I've been playing Ace Attorney, Great Ace Attorney Chronicles for the past week and a half, about 4 or 5 hours a day, which is not something I would expect to happen because of generally what I thought this game was. So over a quick recap, Ace Attorney, and specifically the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, is a visual novel / detective game. In this case, this game was released in 2021. It's a collection of two games, Great Ace Attorney Adventures in 2015 and the Great Ace Attorney Resolve in 2017, collected 4 years later, about for the 2021 version that is available in all markets. It is a visual novel detective game where you are going in, investigating the scenes of the crime, talking to witnesses, gathering evidence, examining that evidence, getting everything you need in order, and then trial, defendant, proving them not guilty, cross-examining witnesses, doing summation exams, all that kind of stuff. And you build up your case, you're doing that, you show back and forth, right? And it's primarily in those two modems of investigating and the trial that the game kind of takes place in. The game itself is split up into two games, as I said. Each have about 5 episodes, that's 10 episodes in total. Each episode takes about 6 or 7 hours, depending on how you play it. So you're looking at 60 to 70, even a little bit higher if you want to get achievements and stuff, hours for this game. It's a very long game in that, but I definitely think once you're past kind of the initial hurdles of learning what's happening and you get past the initial case and a half, I would say, is where it really starts to shine. So that is what the game is. I would highly recommend the game, just in general, as we're saying up here. And I would also really recommend the game to people that maybe have played other visual novels and bounced off of them, people that haven't ever touched an Ace Attorney game like I had. This was my first one. And then people that had kind of tried the original games and bounced off of them. This is the last kind of Ace Attorney game. I think these are number 6 and 7. I could be wrong about that, but these are like the latest Ace Attorney games, and so they have a lot of quality of life improvements that I'll get to in a second that really make me recommend it over some of the previous more simplified games, right? So if you tried Ace Attorney before and you didn't really like it, I would absolutely recommend trying this game out. It's just a great game in general, but especially if you were on the fence about Ace Attorney, you're not really sure if it's a series for you, I would absolutely recommend this game to get you into it, because it is really fantastic. And I, as someone that this was my first Ace Attorney game, I was quite happy with that. Real quick, it is on basically everything. It's on PC, it's on Switch. The version I'm playing is the Switch version. I did not record footage of it at the time, so a lot of this footage you're seeing may be from the PC version or the PlayStation version or whatever. But I play it on the Switch, works perfectly fine on the Switch, no issues there. Also is on PC, as I said, it's on Steam, is not on mobile, but it is on, as I said, Switch. It's on PC, it's on PS4, Xbox, all that stuff. It's a quite long game, as I said before. It's about 65 to 75 hours, but those consist of episodes, so you can kind of pace yourself in doing an episode at a time, right? Every episode's about 6 or 7 hours, depending on how you play it. I usually would do it about an episode in 2 chunks, so I do like the first 3 hours, then the next 3 hours, and then I'd usually complete an episode, and that's a really nice way for me to kind of pace this game because it is so long. For pricing, this game is normally $40, and again, it includes 2 games, so it's effectively $20 each, although you cannot buy it separately, so if you just wanted the first game, you can't do that. It is the bundle, effectively, of the 2 games. That's for $40. You can buy it in a bundle with the other Ace Attorney games in the Turnabout collection for $60, which includes the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, this game, as well as the Phoenix Wright trilogy, I believe, the first Ace Attorney game collection, and that's for $60. The more recent collection, I believe, includes the Apollo Justice one and this Chronicles one, and that's also about $60. So there's different ways you can kind of mix and match if you want to get other Ace Attorney games, but just for this one, it's $40. And then for sales, I got it on Switch for $16. I think it's frequently on sale for $16 in most aspects. I'm not so sure about the other consoles, but at least on PC, I think I've seen it at $16, and I was able to get the Switch version for $16, so it's frequently on sale, as well as the collections also tend to go on sale as well. So I would absolutely say that this game is worth the price, even at $40. This has a lot of content, a lot of interesting things that's happening in it, and I would definitely recommend it even at the full price, but is especially worth it if you can get it on sale. There's a lot here to chew on, and it is quite nice. For just general notes and anything I noticed, performance on Switch is really great. Other platforms as well seem to also be really good. Obviously, I would recommend playing this with a controller. There is auto and other things that kind of make it easier to go through, but I'd recommend definitely playing this on a system that you can relax for, because I'd recommend this game as kind of a night game or a relaxed game or any kind of thing. It's not very intense, and there's obviously going to be a lot of reading. I think kind of one thing you gotta know is that some other visual novels might have like full voice acting or something. The Somnium Files which is another one I'm going through at the moment, has full voice acting, so you're able to kind of just lay back. For this one, there isn't any voice acting, so you will be reading a lot. In fact, I would recommend this game, even if you're not someone that typically frequents games in general, if you're just looking for a really good book, because visual novel, right? It is a visual novel. That's what it is. It is a novel that you're reading, and the characters are just doing fun animations and stuff, right? Versus the detective gameplay. And you can actually enable a story mode in the game, which is really nice to basically just enable that as like a book, like anything else. So if you're not super into games, you might really like this game specifically because of that story mode that lets you kind of breeze through a lot of the options there. So now onto the general gameplay loop, as I tend to want to do with a lot of the reviews. I'm going to be talking about the gameplay loop and how do you play the game, because I think that's oftentimes overlooked in reviews, is the actual function of how does the game work, right? So for gameplay loop, pretty simple, as I mentioned before. You have two kind of sections. You have the investigation. In this case, you're learning clues about what happened. You're investigating the room. You're talking to different people. You're going through their dialogue trees to learn more about the case and learn about them and all that. And then a lot of the time there is also a courtroom. So once you've analyzed the scene, got all the stuff you're going to get, got all the documents you need, right, all the items and stuff, you have to defend usually it's a defense. You're going to defend them and say, hey, they didn't commit this crime. And you do that by presenting evidence and cross-examining witnesses, hearing their testimony, and basically learning more about their testimony as well as countering them with evidence. So if they say something that's blatantly wrong, you can present evidence in effect to say, hey, no, this is actually what it is, right? And you go through that. Occasionally, you'll get a summation examination, which is when the jury in a couple of the later cases say you're guilty, and then you have to basically prove that you aren't. And that way you have to basically pit their statements against each other to say, hey, this and this contradict each other, or this and this prove each other. So that's a really nice kind of gameplay twist as well. On top of other gameplay variety, you will be looking at your court evidence and examining your items more closely, figuring out, the intricacies of them. A lot of the time, you'll learn that if you're just looking at something and you might know what it is, like, oh, obviously it had scribbles about something that's really important, you do have to examine that. So a picture might have a thing on the back of it. You got to examine that, and then the characters will talk about what it is and figure out what it is. And that happens a lot. And what that will do is effectively update that note in your little, inventory. And that will say, hey, this thing has been updated with new information, right? So a lot of the time, you have to examine things, turn them around, view the model, and find things that may be hidden or find elements of it that are suspicious, right? And so that's kind of the general gameplay. Is your first chunk is investigating, collecting evidence, clicking on different things and learning about it, dialogue tree. And the second one is that, not user testimony, but witness testimony, cross-examining the witnesses, proving evidence, that kind of thing. And so that's really the two sides to the gameplay loop, and you'll go through that with the 5 cases, and then that will be a game, right, in the 2 games there. How to play the game, pretty simple. It's a visual novel, so the only buttons you need are the A button for going through things. You can also press -2, make it on autoplay. You have the right bumper for activating court docs and looking through court docs. You can use the right stick to rotate models and everything like that. And you can hold the B button to fast forward. If you're trying to find where the fast forward button is, it's the B button. Everything can just speed through. And then the only other button you need to know about is the X button, which presents. Everything's kind of labeled on screen, so there's not a bunch of complicated controls, anything like that. It's also not like a strategy game or anything, and I think that's kind of something that you may be taken aback a little bit by. This is primarily a visual novel first and a detective game second. What that means is if you're used to other detective games where you can kind of skip through a bunch of the preamble to get to evidence quicker than you thought you could, you can't really do that in this game. You are effectively ultimately watching a story play out and kind of along for the ride as you're doing your detective thing. So if you, for example, suspect that this person is innocent because of XYZ, they're not going to get to that same conclusion till a while later once that's actually shown in court and evidence. So just kind of be aware that this is not a detective game where you're going to be able to fast forward through a lot of the what may seem as mundane or repetitive aspects of it just because you have an idea of where this is going, right? So it's a story first and a detective game second. Something to keep in mind. You're going to go through it like a book. You're not going to skip through a bunch of pages to figure out what they did, right? So treat it like that rather than treating it like a detective game, and I think the gameplay of it will become more enjoyable when you do that. Pros and cons. Awesome story. There's some really nice characters to it. The animations from everything are pretty nice as well. It runs great on every platform I've played it on. In this case, it's just been Switch and PC. a little bit there. It is well tuned, it's small, there's a lot of content there, it's well presented. I like the dialogue, I like the kind of the way it presents a lot of its cases and stuff. And it's also frequently on sale, which is really nice. Cons. Biggest con, obviously, no voice acting except for some, sound effects and things. It is important to note that this was a 2015 game and a 2017 game, so at this point, voice acting, especially to this caliber with this amount of dialogue, wasn't super, well known at the time or super frequent. But it is kind of disappointing that more things are not fully voice acted to some capacity, because they do have the voices for the characters, as you can see in the little opening and ending, cinematics, if you will, sequences, right? They do have voice actors, and so it would have been nice to see more voice acting. And the other thing is, generally speaking, the first couple of cases, the first two cases, first two episodes there are a little bit slow in the first game and kind of feel like you're just going over the same points over and over again. Kind of a general feeling that you're kind of repeating things, but it's really only exasperated in those two episodes because they are so frequent about it and because you don't know where the story is going, so you're not really invested in anything that's happening. So the biggest two cons are that lack of, meaningful voice acting and the kind of repetitive nature and boring nature of the first two cases. But after that, it gets significantly more interesting, both in terms of the pacing of it and in terms of the story and the characters and where it's going. And so a lot of those kind of irritants in terms of repetition and kind of over-explaining things vastly go away. They're still there in some capacity, especially later on in episode 5 a little bit, because that's quite a long case that took me about 10 hours, it feels like, on that episode 5. But there are some points where it feels like it over-explains things, but primarily it's only really annoying when you're not really invested in what's happening. You're kind of just clicking through, trying to get to the end, right? And I did kind of feel that a little bit in the first episode, where it felt like, okay, we know what's happening, we know kind of where we're supposed to be going, and it just kind of took a while to get there. So those are the two main cons there, but overall, I'd definitely say that the pros vastly outweigh the cons, even if it would be nice to see some of those things alleviated. I definitely think the quality on display here is really shocking. To me, it was really felt in episode 4, when we meet Iris and their characters there, and just really nice characterization, and the things started coming home and things started connecting really well, and it just really felt like, okay, they know what they're doing here, and I was really quite impressed with that. I haven't had any platform issues, I haven't had any performance issues or technical problems playing on the Switch version. It's never crashed on me, I haven't had any bugs or anything like that, so I definitely recommend it from that technical performance. And yeah, overall, I would highly recommend the game. I would definitely also recommend it a full price or sale price, depending on when you can get it. Platform doesn't matter, everything performs really well, but as I guess we'll end off here, it is a visual novel first, right? So go in expecting story, characters, lots of dialogue. You're going to be reading a lot. If you can do that, I think it's a fantastic game, and you should absolutely check it out. Hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more of this stuff on the channel, hit the subscribe button, do all that, and I'll see everyone in the next video.